Good evening, everybody. Okay, are we ready down there? Good to go. All right. Could I move to a public session?
Move it.
Second.
All those, okay, excellent. Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please stand for a moment of silence. We especially remember the families of Ciara Hare and Florence Operson this evening. Thank you. Please be seated. Oh, is there a fire code anymore?
No.
Okay, all right, no fire code. All right.
Good evening. Very excited this evening, and thank you for all being here. We have Mr. Royal and Mr. Criffo, who are assistant principals at our high school, who are here to recognize our AP scholars. And they're going to tell you quite a bit about them. It's an honor and a recognition, and we're really proud to have you all here. Mr. Criffo, Mr. Royal.
Good evening, everybody. Oh, it's a little bit louder than I expected. All right. So Mr. Davidson introduced the two of us. My name is Joe Criffo, and this is Mr. Royal, two of the new assistant principals up at the high school. I just wanted to take a minute to thank the board for giving us this opportunity to present, and for the community for coming out to support all of our scholars. It truly takes a village to build a child, and Lindenhurst is a testament to that. So the recognition of these scholars would not be possible without the support of their families, their friends, community, and their teachers. Though their transcripts are labeled Lindenhurst High School, their accomplishments are the sum of their educational experience from kindergarten all the way through their senior year. So I'd like to take this moment to thank all of those who've helped these students become who they are. So during this presentation, Mr. Royal and I have the privilege of highlighting not just some of the best and brightest that Lindenhurst has to offer, but the best and brightest that the country as a whole has to offer. For those of you that don't know, there's about 1.8 million AP test takers per year, and only 18% of those students qualify for these AP Scholar Awards. So these students are among the best and the brightest in the country and the world, because it is an international test. So kudos to them. They are truly something to be proud of. Similar in prestige is the National Merit Commended Scholar Award. All right, this is awarded to students who take the PSAT, or the practice SAT, and students who score in the top 3 to 5% of this test across the country receive a Commended Scholar Award. So without further ado, here are Lindenhurst 2022 National Merit Commended students. So when we call your name, please come across, see Mr. Royal. He'll give you a certificate, walk across the stage, and wait by the flag. All right? So first we have Raymond Fleury. Up next, we have Mikolai Pankow. Last but not least, Lauren Walker. And now I'll turn it over to Mr. Royal, where he will announce the AP Scholars.
Thank you, Mr. Criffo.
The next three categories that we're going to talk about are based on the AP exams. It's kind of important to remember that AP exams are graded on a scale of 1 to 5. So generally students that get a 3 or higher will qualify for college credit, and that will give them college credit towards that course. So the first category that we have is the AP Scholar Awards. There we go. These are students who receive scores of 3 or higher on 3 or more AP exams. We have Zachary Alford. Eva Barbera. Brendan Bosak. Brock Brown. Aurelia Kakasi. Vincent Chiarelli. Natalia Chornomita. Juliana Cuevas. Ola Chodoriska. Nina D'Agostino. Vanessa Denisi. Leah Eastwood. Diana Ferreira. Claudia Frankowski. Victoria Garetta. Angelica Lamb. Esmeralda Merlos. Daniel Narevsky. Andrew Provence. Joseph V. Rippo. And Michelle Tritola. The next 10 students is the category of AP Scholar with honors. These are granted to students who receive an average score of at least a 3.25 on all AP exams taken and scores a 3 or higher on 4 or more of these exams. So these 10 students are Jennifer Albano, Michael Copabianco, Alexandra Carbonero, Rowan Canadella, Brooke Elliott, Phoebe Hurst, Wilhelmina Kalish, Ellie Kaya, Jan Lin, and Maggie Verrier. The next 14 students in the high school are, we're running out of room here? This is good. This is a good problem to have.
Yeah, the great news is that we have a lot of students who are doing extremely well. So I do want to let you know two things. One, if you want to know the criteria, I know some of you are interested, it's back there. And we will be posting this presentation, so if you want to, you can view that information as well.
So the next category is the AP Scholar with Distinction. We had 14 students at the high school. These students had a score of at least a 3.5 and a 3 or higher on 5 or more of these AP exams. So these 14 students are Riley Colford, Mason Emmerich, Paulo Gonzalez, Raymond Fleury,
He's back. He's going for 2.
Megan Gonzalvo, Dominic Gidut, Mark Legrandier, Corey Lindeman, Sini Liu, Jessica Orzalowski, Mikolai Pankow, Adriana Pichardo, Amelia Rodriguez, and Lauren Walker. Okay, Mr. Criffo is going to talk about AP seminar and research certificates.
Okay, so it's getting pretty tight up there. You know, a lot of these students, they've already earned an award. So let's just stay on the stage. We'll save a little time. I know there's a bunch of people behind each other. It'll be a lot of shifting. So we'll give you your awards as soon as we break. Okay, it makes it a little bit easier for you guys. So the AP Seminar and Research Certificate are granted to students who earn scores of 3 or higher in both AP Seminar and AP Research. For those of you that don't know what those two classes are, AP Seminar and AP Research are just 2 courses. They don't run concurrently. They follow one another. In AP Seminar, they focus a lot on the public skills, how to research, forming a good argumentative question, how to dissect an argument, and how to public speak. And then the following year, AP Research comes into play, where students will have their own research problem. They'll dedicate an entire year to craft their study on that. So it's a really time-intensive process. So these students, they really put in a lot of time and work. Without further ado, here are AP Seminar and Research Certificate holders. We have Jennifer Albano, Aurelia Kakesi, Alexander Carbonaro, Nina D'Agostino, Brooke Elliott, Claudia Frankowski, Megan Gonzalvo, Angelica Lamb, and Esmeralda Merlos. And last, we have our AP Capstone Certificates. So this is a special diploma granted by the College Board to students who earn scores of 3 or higher in both AP Seminar and AP Research, and a 3 or higher on 4 additional AP exams of their choosing. So they've taken at least 6 AP exams and earned a 3 or higher on each and every one of them. So for this year, we have 4 students. First is Riley Colford. Up next is Paulo Gonzalez. Cindy Liu. And last, Hamil Rodriguez. To all of our scholars, guys, congratulations. This is truly an achievement. You guys have worked hard. Enjoy it. Congratulations.
So I'm going to ask if the board would get on stage. Mr. O'Brien's going to take a picture. He's going to get everyone together.
We'll go with hands. What's that? We'll go hands. Yeah.
You know, one thing, and I really want to underscore the achievements that we look at of the students behind us. Keep in mind, when they accomplished all of this, they were juniors. This is nothing attributed to senior year. So many of them will go on to further distinctions in their senior year. The aim of an education is not necessarily to garner education, college credits, but what they've demonstrated is mastery in courses that demonstrate they are ready for college and ready to excel in college. On top of it, some of them will already be awarded credits that will lead them into their sophomore year when they enter college, because they continue on this year. It's nothing short of impressive, the effort, the work that has to go in it, and the level of complexity that they have to overcome. So I really want to give them another hand. They're remarkable young people.
And parents, if you guys want to come up and get pictures, feel free.
Given how hard you work, we know you have to all go home and study. So thanks for being here tonight. Congratulations. We look for the great things to come the rest of this year.
Do you need the PowerPoint? We're going to need that.
Thank you very much. Hello, how are you? How's everything? Congratulations. Congratulations. That's it. I want to thank Mr. Criffo and Mr. Royal again for presenting. We're going to reconvene in a moment. Thank you for being here. How you doing? Hey, congratulations. This is great. It's wonderful. Congratulations. Well done. That's good. Yeah, it should be. It's great. It's a huge accomplishment. It's amazing, isn't it? Absolutely. It's great. Awesome. Well, have a good night.
Very nice, right? Absolutely. That's good. Oh, but I'm not. Very good. Thank you.
I'll just introduce you. That'll be it. I'm going to introduce Vinny. I'd like to bring up and introduce for our next presentation. We're looking at student achievement. We have Dr. Lisa Omes, who's the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction for Elementary Instruction, and Mr. Vincent Caravana, who is the Deputy Superintendent. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to also congratulate all of our scholars this evening on a job well done. Congratulations. Thank you, everyone. My name is Dr. Lisa Omes. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Elementary Curriculum and Instruction, and it's my pleasure to be with you this evening and just share with you some of the highlights of data regarding student performance. Before I get started, I just want to point out that the results you're going to see tonight really don't tell the whole story. We have a large opt-out rate, so the numbers that the state gives us based on student achievement is based on a very low participation rate. The question also is, how do we compare to other districts? Again, New York State has said you can't compare yourselves to another district because your participation rate is very different from your neighbors. Your demographics might be very different from your neighbors. So it's very difficult to make those comparisons. So if you look at, I have to put these on. I didn't have to put these on 21 years ago when I started. Anyway.
I know that feeling.
When you look at the ELA participation rates, the number of students tested in grade 3 was 35%, in grade 4, 22%, and in grade 5, 20%. Those numbers for 21-22 are 36, 34, and 32%. When you look at the ELA performance data, there are 4 bars. I got to remember to click. There are 4 bars present. The last bar all the way for each of the grade levels in orange is the performance rate overall for that grade, for the number of students that demonstrate proficiency. A level 1 student would be a student designated below 2 levels below grade level. A level 2 student is approaching grade level. A level 3 student is on grade level, and 4 would be considered mastery or proficient. So 66% of our students in grade 3 show a proficiency level, grade 4, 80%, and grade 5, 47% proficiency. In 21-22, those numbers decreased slightly, 53%, 52%, and 41% in fifth grade. Turning to science, the data we have here is the participation rate in science, and I have to tell you, the kids really love the science test. And I guess that's why STEAM is really taking off. The kids just love to really get their hands in it. They love the experiments, and they seem to perform very nicely on the science exam. The science exam is two parts. One part is a short answer or multiple choice, and the other part is a performance where they weigh and measure things, roll a ball down a ramp and measure speed and energy, etc. And our students showed a 92% proficiency rate for those students that participated, and there was a participation rate of 34% in 21-22. For math participation rates in third grade, our students, 34% participated in the 2021 math, with a 28% in fourth grade and a decrease to 22% in fifth grade. And that was for 2021 school year. Thank you, sorry. For the 21-22 school year, the participation rates are slightly higher in our math. State exam, 37%. In third and fourth grade, and 30% in fifth grade. As far as the performance results, we have a proficiency level of 69% in third grade, 54% in fourth grade, 45% in fifth grade for the 2021 school year. And for the 21-22, same as ELA, our results are slightly lower in the math performance, with a 44% in third proficiency level, number of students proficient, 51% in fourth grade, and 45% in grade 5. ELA iReady results. For those of you that don't know, iReady is the diagnostic that we administer to our students 3 times a year, at the beginning of the year, sometime in beginning of October. We do it again around January, and then finally in June. And what we do is we take that data, we measure student growth. Here in 1920, obviously, due to the pandemic, we were unable to administer the spring exam, but I just gave you a snapshot of the results for the fall and the spring. I did not include the third diagnostic because really you want to see where the child winds up at the end of the year from where they started. So what was their benchmark, and then what was their, where did they land at the end of the year? As part of our DSIP plan, we do measure closely student growth as well throughout. So in fall 2021, the students were at a 37% in Tier 1, 38% in Tier 2, and 25% in Tier 3. Tier 3 is your at-risk tier, and so your goal is to get students out of the Tier 3 and move them ahead, obviously, into Tier 1, but at minimum, move them from a Tier 3 to a Tier 2. In spring of 2021, you can see that we had a decrease in our Tier 3 from 25 to 18%, a decrease in our Tier 2 from a 38 to 26%, and then an increase, which is where you want to see the increase, 37 to a 56%. And then in fall of 21-22, we again went from fall to spring from 27 to 18%. And again, you want to see that decrease. That is your Tier 3. From a 40% to a 26%. So that was a nice decrease from our Tier 2, because the greatest increase is where, again, you want to see the increases from 33 to 57% in the spring. So what does that mean for us? So obviously, everyone talks about learning gaps and the things that students have sort of missed over the last couple of years. So the district has worked on many initiatives to address learning gaps and enrichment. And one of the things is we don't just rely on one exam. We have students that don't take the ELAs, so that's not a point of measurement that we can utilize. iReady, kid comes in, maybe they have a bad day, even though we do administer it 3 times a year. We have additional screeners. We use Fountain Sempanel, we use AimsWeb, we use running records within the classroom. So there are other measures that we use to track our students' progress. We have ongoing multi-year professional development on small group guided reading. That was an initiative we started last year. We have a staff developer who's coming in and working with all of our teachers K to 5 on small group guided reading. They have whole group and grade specific professional development. We last year started our after-school math clubs to help those students that might be demonstrating areas of weakness. This is above our math AIS program that we have during the day, so this is an after-school. Last year, the district purchased scholastic book rooms to provide additional resources for teachers. It contains, each building has their own scholastic book room, contains over 6,000 titles. Teachers can search for material by grade level, by genre, by topic, theme, skill, etc. And you might have a teacher that has a student, a 4th grade student that might be working on a 2nd grade level. They can grab those materials that's available to them. So there's a lot of resources for the teachers. We ran Lit Camp again this summer. Students, we had I think about 225 students that attended Lit Camp this summer. They absolutely love it. We run a lot of sections, and the kids really enjoy coming. The teachers have really, they decorate their rooms with the camp theme, and according to the data that I've compiled with Lit Camp, at least 60% of our students have shown growth from June to September, when ordinarily they would demonstrate a slide or a little bit of a decrease in their reading performance. So I'm happy to say it's working. iReady instructional support, that is available all year long. If you're an elementary parent, you know that you've received a Parent Square message from me saying that that is available for students. They can use it during the year. It's also available all summer, both reading and math. It it's part of the diagnostic, and it's adjusted and individualized to your student's performance and will adjust accordingly. And then we have our STEAM clubs that also provide enrichment for our students. And now I will turn the clicker over to Mr. Caravana. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Vincent Caravana, Deputy Superintendent. Thank you for being here. I'm going to segue now into some of the data with regard to secondary instruction. Not so much data as bragging rights, really, and some programs that we have and where we're doing exceptional work. So just to reiterate what Dr. Olmos had shared, and this is excerpted from NYSED.gov, a couple disclaimers, asterisks, whatnot, that basically state that you really can't compare, as Dr. Olmos said, results from district to district, school to school, because you're only looking at approximately 4 out of 10 students who took the test. Some other caveats, there were no ELA or math tests administered in 1920 as a result of COVID. New York State Regents exams were made available in 1920 and 2021, but reduced only to what's mandated. The 2021-22 U.S. history exam was canceled due to a potential sensitivity issue with regard to timing in one of the questions. And I'm very proud to say that at its June 1st, 2022 meeting, our Board of Education, in consultation with input from all stakeholders, passed a resolution stating that the Regents exam for 21-22 and this coming year, 22-23, will only be factored in a student's grade if it is beneficial. So that in mind, and I want to just briefly kind of gloss over this. If we're looking at the middle school ELA, right, and we're talking about opt-out rates upwards of 70%, the last year that we have The closest thing to any real data is the 18-19 year. And I broke it down because this was the last year that we had a basis for comparison. So as you can see, our grade 6, 7, and 8 is higher than the average in Suffolk County, and it's higher than the average in New York State as well. 1920, you see a gap, and then 2021 and 21-22, you can see our scores there. And again, all this is going to be on the website. Math, we accelerate all. So again, you can see the year 18-19. You won't see any scores for our 8th graders because they're taking the algebra regions, but you will see for grade 6 and 7. And again, higher than Suffolk, higher than New York State. I do have in this presentation all of these statistics with regard to the Regents exams. I'm not going to go through them all. I'll let you go through that at your leisure. But if we look at the English Regents, for example, and we look at 5-year data trends, the light blue, that is the passing rate, and the light gray, it actually is, if you look at it on the computer, that's your mastery rate, which is 85 or higher. Following this, you've got the U.S. history, you've got algebra, geometry, living environment chem, physics. Again, I can speak to you if you'd like about these. I don't want to waste your time poring over them, though. Graduation rates. This is our 5-year trend here, and it looks promising, and that's great, but I do want you to keep in mind, again, the caveat that we saw Regents exams canceled. We had the appeals process in place, so even though our graduation rate is great, there's still work to be done. So where do we go from here? Our board has graciously provided us, for as long as I've been in this seat, a Regents Review course in January and in June. We've added additional Regents Review for our struggling learners. The ARP, American Rescue Plan funds, to address learning gap, we use that money to provide a Saturday Math Academy to our middle school students. This provided very successful. Title III funds are allotted to us by New York State to level the playing field for English language learners, and that money has to be used exclusively for that purpose. So part of what we use that for is E&L Regents Review. Of course, we have our remedial courses. We've used our ARP funds to get bilingual and TESOL certified push-in teachers for our math classes. We've identified a gap for our English language learners, specifically our Spanish speakers. We also have a boost program at the high school. That is going to be, in essence, a 10th period remedial class for students struggling in earth science and in geometry, 2 important regions for graduation. We work with consultants, Center for Applied Linguistics and Consulting That Makes a Difference, ongoing mental health professionals, safe spaces, bilingual guidance counselors and social workers, all of our mental health pieces in place, yoga clubs. We're very happy to announce that pending board approval, because yoga has been so successful as a club at our middle school, we're now going to be offering it as an alternative to physical education for students in grades 7 and 8 and 10 through 12. And finally, we are also using our Title I funds for our at-risk students to provide a voluntary basic Spanish for educators class. Teachers are opting to take this after school just to improve their craft, better be able to communicate with parents, and better to communicate basic Spanish. We have a robust AP program here. Many courses. I would put it up against any high school on Long Island. In terms of our AP results, keeping in mind this is obviously a much smaller list than the previous slide, using a sample size of 10 students or more who sat, anything that you see highlighted in green, we were higher in Lindenhurst than both the state and the world. And anything that you see in red, we were lower than the state and global. So obviously, you know, we're going to work on that. But as you can see, there's a lot more green. As a pleasant alternative to AP exams, where you don't necessarily have to put all your eggs in one basket, we have a lot of dual enrollment college level courses. we work with multiple universities. And the reason we do that is because each one seems to offer something that the other doesn't. And we pride ourselves in going beyond the basics. So perhaps a student is not necessarily going to be a French scholar, but they want to go into culinary arts and hospitality. They can get college credit for that. I was just talking to Mrs. Cunningham, who told me that her son actually graduated a semester early as a result of having so many college credits. And I know that we do that for a lot of students as well. And if there is anybody that you know of for whom money is an issue, please reach out, because we do have funds available for that as well. Finally, I just want to talk briefly about our Seal of Biliteracy, which is an incredible honor for students to demonstrate proficiency in languages other than English. We started at 7, and in 2019, we were up to 85. Obviously, the pandemic hit, but we're looking to see that increase again. And lastly, this year we're piloting a seal of civic readiness. Students are going to be even more civic-minded for the social studies classes that they take, for electives that they take, for projects that they complete in consultation with a teacher. They'll have the opportunity to earn points and ultimately their seal of civic readiness. So hopefully we'll be able to commend those scholars as we approach the end of the school year. And that is the Reader's Digest version of secondary. Again, this will all be on the website, and I certainly welcome you to reach out to either Dr. Omis or me with any questions, particularly the Regents exams, which I went through quickly because there are a lot of them. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caravana. Do any of my colleagues have any questions on the presentation? I'll take that as a no. Great job, thank you very much. I would just remind the public that during both the business meeting and the community forum, we'll have time for public comment. If you haven't signed the sheet, there's 2 sheets over there. Please let's sign your name and address, and one is for the agenda and one is for the community forum. Oh, I'm sorry, just pick one, cross it out, and put agenda, or if one of you guys could do that. Just, sorry about that, thank you for pointing it out. Okay. District-wide safety plan?
3.3, each year, a district is required to post and publish a district-wide safety plan and give a 30-day comment period. Back on in early October, the board reviewed the district safety plan. We opened it for public comment over the last 30 days. And today, we look to have the board vote and approve it when it moves on to consent agenda. So just want to make a note of that, to let everyone know that district plan has been posted on our website, will remain in the website as well. And that's different. I know that there's some confusion. The building plans are very confidential, given they have schematics and things of that nature, so they're not available to the public, but the district plan gives our overall approach to different areas in security and safety. We're actually going to, I think we're going to move a presentation. We have a review of some of the work that we've been doing here relative to DASA. I presented in September some of the work that we've been doing, and wanted to give a periodic update. I think that's really important, that we show the community the efforts that we're making where we are. We're certainly not finished, never will be, but definitely wanted to show where we are in interim capacity. So I'm calling my own number.
Nothing like technical difficulties. Where's my building? Apologize for the delay, folks. We're just getting the information.
I apologize.
Doesn't look good. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Is it booting up? Yeah. It always takes longer when there's people watching, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's taking forever.
We're getting there, I apologize.
No, it's logging in, okay. Aileen? Aileen Cavallari? Aileen Cavallari? There you go. There you go. I'll never throw him a curveball again. Yeah. Well, no, I didn't. I changed it up. That's okay. I think he was logged in on a different Google Drive. He was probably logged in on a different Google Drive.
Benny?
Yeah, they were probably logged in as Vinny. No, but this presentation is on his login, so. I think we're good. Hold on, I think he's ready. It looks like they're starting. Looks like one of them started. No pressure, Vin. There it is. There it is. Sorry about the delay, folks. Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. As I pointed out, we wanted to demonstrate where we are relative to some of the goals that we set out early in the year in September. You know, one of the first courses of action, and I've told everyone here, I don't want to move this system super quickly because then we're destined to fail. But we also don't want to ignore issues that are presented to us that need immediate attention. And what became abundantly clear is coming in, we needed to review our processes and our systems relative to DASA and our interventions regarding bullying, harassment, and discrimination. So we wanted to hit the ground running and came forward in September and outlined some goals and objectives we had. I'm going to butcher your name, Dr. D. Eudisibus. Did I get it? I hit it. I stuck the landing. Try to say that 5 times fast. Anyway, Dr. D. Eudisibus, pushing it, is going to join me in a few minutes just to kind of talk a little bit about some of the work that we're doing in the middle school as well, which was an area that we felt, listen, as a former middle school principal, I think that middle schools are one of the hot points when we're talking about bullying, intimidation, and harassment. It really is a breeding ground. You're talking about students who now are really becoming increasingly socially active. Their adolescent brains are not developed to the point where they can control a lot of their impulses. There's a social climbing and a meanness that sometimes comes with it. So that really is often ground zero for the behaviors that we're talking about. But part of our work is long-term and looking at how we start to address that from the early grades and early on. Just a refresher and reminder what DASA is. DASA is an act that requires that districts address and schools address bullying, harassment, and/or discrimination that occurs on school grounds, on school buses, at school functions, and off school grounds if it has a material connection to the learning environment. If we feel that the behavior will impact students in school, then it is applicable to DASA as well. We also look at this, the primary focus of DASA, and I think this is really important, is prevention, not just reaction. You know, response and reaction are real things. As I talked about, particularly in the adolescent development, kids have the brains that are moving 3 million miles an hour and they don't have brakes. So it's really trying to teach them better, teaching them to have empathy and to understand perspective, particularly in this era of social media, which people can say things without having to look into other people's eyes or in other people's homes and understand the impact on them and their families. So our focus is prevention, but we also need to have the other components, intervention and response. So there's training, there's education requirements to go with it, there's the filing of reports that we have to follow up on, and at times the district didn't do that with fidelity and recognized it, revisited it, and fixed that and remediated that. So some of those goals that we talked about are outlined here in this chart, and again, all of this will be available for the public. One, we talked about providing training and retraining all our Dignity Act coordinators. Every building must have a Dignity Act coordinator. We did that. We completed that training in September. Every Dignity Act coordinator was either retrained in the spring or trained again in September. So that has been completed. But that's cyclical. It's not a one and done. We have to go on, we have to refine, we have to revisit. So I talk about that being short-term, but also a cyclical process. Updated information, we had to update our DASA reporting forms to make sure the correct names were there and that the routing system was accurate. We did that immediately after the meeting and made sure that that was taken care of as well. Again, short-term, cyclical. People change, names change, routing processes change. We need to do that yearly, and we will. We said we would identify teams and provide training in restorative practices and responsive classroom. This is part of the prevention. So responsive classroom, we have approximately 5 to 6 individuals in each elementary building who are going to go to training. It's a 4-day training, so it's not a couple hours, to learn about responsive classroom, to see if this is something that may work for our district. Responsive classroom is a framework, a system, in order to provide kids with an opportunity to feel connected and belonging, but also to develop social skills, self-advocacy skills, advocacy for others as well. So it's a way to be systemic and purposeful in how we design this. And one of the pieces of responsive classroom, which is really simple, is a morning meeting. But it's a morning meeting where the kids are working not on academics, but on interpersonal social skills. And I've seen responsive classroom where kindergartners were talking about, what do you do when you're stuck? And talking about with each other what they do when they get stuck and have their complications, starting to learn the emotional literacy and lexicon on what to do when they're having difficulties and having conversations about that. So that's part of responsive. Restorative practices really are just that. When kids misbehave or they struggle or they do things, it's not only about consequences. It doesn't mean we absolve them of having to pay a price for things that they've done, but it's teaching them, you are a member of a community. You need to make this right. And understanding the impact of your behavior. And sometimes their intent and impact is not the same. And restorative practices helps us to delve and work on that. In the secondary level, we have many people who are going to go to training, multiple day training, to learn and understand. And as we look at this and move forward, to see if these are the programs and approaches that we want to institute. Again, this is long-term work and cyclical as well, short-term and long-term. We identified teams we're putting forward for training, which will take place in January. We are continuing to review our programs that we have in place. That's systemic, that's ongoing, that's cyclical, to see if we need to change, modify, or anything in terms of our SEL programs. We look at the staff that we have. District-wide, we have 43 people who are school social workers, counselors, psychologists. There's a lot of support here, and we want to continue to do that. We also talked about forming a community coalition. We have begun that work. Now, this is important because one of the things I heard at the meetings that I attended was bullying isn't exclusive to school, and there are times where when we leave campus, the police won't help. And we have to try to fill in the gap between what goes on in the school and what goes on outside. And the only way you do that in a community like Lindenhurst, where everyone talks about Lindenhurst being an important community, a generational community, is to bring in the people who are involved in that work inside and out. So we meet monthly. We have board members, we have administrators, we have social workers, psychologists, health teachers. We have representation from Lindy Cares, Long Island Prevention Resource, the school resource officer, who is from the 1st Precinct and works with our schools, the community liaison, who pushes into buildings and does presentations. They all attend. We're looking to add parents to the committee, and we're going to grow. But it really is looking at, look at all these things we have available to combat negative behaviors, and building a web of support inside and outside of school, knocking down the school wall and making it all one part of the community. And we've begun that work. That's deep work, that's long-term work. It's something I'm excited about. We're 2 meetings in, but it's going very well. You know, additional things, and I'm not gonna say your name again because I'll butcher it. Dr. D is gonna talk a bit about what the middle school's been working on. So Dr. D.
I also need glasses. Good evening. I'm happy to be here to share some of our ongoing efforts to address the concerns of bullying. The district has partnered with the Long Island Coalition Against Bullying to provide support and education to our students, our staff, and our parents. Mr. Joseph Salamone, the founder and executive director of LICAB, has visited and presented to our staff in October in a faculty meeting. He has come to our building to work with our students and presented at grade level presentations in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in the month of November. And in these presentations, he shared his personal experiences with bullying. He made a clear distinction for our students about what bullying is and what bullying is not. He explained to the students that mean and unkind words might be hurtful, and they may be harmful and have lasting effects, but they are not rising to the level of bullying when they are not repeated events, ongoing with an intent to harm. The types of bullying were reviewed extensively in terms of verbal bullying, physical bullying, cyberbullying. Our kiddos were aware of those types of bullying. What they were not aware of, and was somewhat surprising to us in this presentation, is relational bullying. They did not realize that when a student excludes another student or tells another student not to be friends with another student, and that is ongoing and repeated with an intent to harm, that is bullying. He did speak extensively about the long-term effects of bullying as well. Mr. Salamone will return to the middle school to present to our parents on December 6th at 7 p.m. in the middle school auditorium. I invite you all to attend. I ask you to help spread the word. We would love to see you there. He will be back at the middle school again in January for 9 days to present to every student in the middle school in their classrooms, to push into the classrooms, to work with our students in small groups, and to let them know the impact of bullying and to try to increase acceptance and tolerance for differences. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Davidson to conclude this presentation, but Mr. Naccarato, Mrs. Natali, myself, and Mr. Furno would love to see you at the middle school on December 6th at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Also, you know, another thing, and I think it's really important, and I was fortunate to be a little bit of a part of that conversation, but it's something the board did approve last year, was the appointing of 2 assistant principals who I didn't realize would be here. And really, that was unplanned. Hello, Mr. Galafalo, Ms. Moon, how are you? And they are, you know, we moved, one of their key responsibilities is intervening with the social emotional work. And they are Dignity Act coordinators. That wasn't always the case. Oftentimes, it was a social worker who was involved in that. But getting more administrative support in order to work on these, to advance programs, to intervene with kids, to work on mediation, which is something I'm hearing a lot more than we were doing. Because oftentimes what you do in school is if kids have a conflict or a disagreement, and bullying's different. You know, there's an imbalance of power. You don't want to put a target or a victim in front of the student who's targeted him or her. That's not, mediation isn't appropriate. But a lot of times in middle school and in elementary schools, mediation's what's needed. It was a conflict, it was a disagreement, it was a bad incident. And having kids sit across the table and try to understand each other and move forward is much more powerful than trying to tell elementary school kids to stay away from each other. And in this community, you can't do that. They're going to be together for the next 9 to 10 years. We need to be able to figure out in areas, in times where we can, and it's appropriate to mediate and help them move forward. Are there any questions from the board?
Does anybody have questions from the board?
Okay.
I actually, just one question. Dr. D. Disabis, thank you for your presentation. What were the dates again for the parent meetings? December 6th? 7 p.m. Okay.
And we
Could
can
just
get
put
that out on Parent
on
Square.
the website so that, or Parent Square, so that parents can go to that? Excellent, okay.
Great.
I think the parents are key to be involved with. And then just one question I had, have you guys, since we started these efforts beginning of the school year, have you seen any increase, decrease, any sort of change that either objectively or what you're sensing? from the
It's hard,
student
you know,
community?
being the newcomer, you know, to say that there's change, what I can tell you is that every time there is a DASA report, I get a call. And we sit and we talk about what the potential interventions are, what the potential steps are, and we work as a team, and we function that way from a district level and a building level. And then we follow up. You know, every time that it's resolved, there's a resolution, and we have a discussion, and we figure that out. I'm not, you know, now that I'm on the receiving end of every DASA report, you know, I can't say that they're abundant. They're not dozens of DASA reports or whatever the case might be. And these are, again, they're available on the website for people to file. But the follow-through has certainly been there. I think a lot of times people are making really good decisions in terms of when to bring kids together and when not, and when discipline, a higher level of discipline is needed. Eventually, we are going to have, you know, in a new human resources role, will be our Central Dignity Act coordinator. So those calls will certainly move in Mr. Carney's direction. But I stay involved as well because we want to make sure that we're doing right. And I think there's been a lot of effort here, and everyone wants to do well. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we're done, that the work's nearly done and where it needs to be, or that we'll ever eradicate bullying, because we won't. I wish I could, but I'd be selling you something that isn't true. But I can tell you that we're making every effort to make sure that we remove that. We don't want any child to live that way and experience that in our schools.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. All right, let's see. 4.1, approval of minutes.
I'd like to approve the minutes from the November 2nd, 2022 business meeting.
Do I have a
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Martino.
Yeah.
On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6,
Yeah.
600. 4.2, approval of revised minutes.
I'd like to approve the revised minutes from the July 13th, 2022 organizational meeting.
Moved by Mrs. Cunningham, do I have a
Second.
second? Seconded by Mr. Renner. On the question, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 600. Okay, Mr. Davidson, you haven't been talking that much this evening. Do you have a report?
I think you're tired of hearing me. But what I will say, and I don't know if I've said this loudly and proudly enough, our marching band competed at nationals, and they finished second in their division in nationals, which is unbelievable and remarkable. And I can tell you that from August, when I got to meet the marching band, the marching band parents in particular, some of whom were here, the dedication between the young people, their families, Mr. Pike, and the music teachers is just phenomenal. How committed everybody is and the time that they put in. So for them to place there is just absolutely exceptional. So I do want to commend them and give them a round in absence. I also am holding coffee and conversations. I realize one of my conflicts with the bullying presentation that Mr. Solomoni is doing, so we're going to modify that. Mr. O'Brien will work on that tomorrow. I also have one December 6th at 9:30 a.m., not 6:30 a.m., for parents. So we alternate. We had one in the evening on Monday, and we'll have one in the morning. We'll schedule another evening one, but I'll have to change that date. But yeah, there's a lot going on, but I do want to say, if I don't have the opportunity to speak again, and I know that I will actually, I wish everybody happy holidays and happy Thanksgiving. I cannot believe it's November 16th.
Yeah, no kidding. Thank you very much. On behalf of President Hockman, I apologize for her absence. She is unwell this evening, so just wanted to put that out there. So let's see, next up is Board of Education. Do any of my colleagues have questions on agenda items?
I do not.
I'm going to take that as a no. So individuals and delegations, again, I apologize for the mix-up on the sheet, but for the business meeting this evening, I have two individuals. Katie Belpano, if you could come up and introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hi, how are you? Could you just please clarify what agenda item 9.5 is regarding? It's confidential designation.
Absolutely. As soon as I find 9.5.
So we have an employee who's moving into a role overseeing payroll. Confidential designations occur when particularly members of the clerical unit are removed from the unit, so they lose the bargaining benefits of that,
Right.
into a role where they're dealing with very highly sensitive information. So it is a motion in order to accept the confidential designation of this individual.
Okay, great. I just wasn't sure. I saw it. I was like, what's that? And also, agenda items 9.7 through 13, I was curious about them, particularly because it's my home elementary school, 9.10. But if you could just clarify about those for us.
So one of the things, in order to do projects within buildings, there's something called the SEQA, State Environmental Quality Impact, whether or not the projects have an impact. If they rise to certain criteria, we're not required to have an environmental impact study. So some of the three items that are on the agenda tonight are to review and to be able to plan for these particular projects and serve, to put forward the SEQA, that we're acknowledging that we don't need the review, and then to move forward to build these things. So one of the things we're working on, as you can indicate from these agenda items, is we recognize they're called access control vestibules. Nobody knows them by that name. They're called man-traps.
Man-traps,
I think
yeah.
a lot of times, which is quite a name, but we want to develop and build them. So we're creating
Okay.
a facilities plan. This paves the way for us to go up and put forward state approval in order to then plan, once we get that approval, to build them.
So I'm glad to see that because I think that they're an important thing to have in place for our schools. But I noticed that you only have them for 3 of the elementary schools on here.
Correct. So we're trying to do them in a sequence that the others that we need to do them are going to come. We're going to present a facilities plan to the board in draft form next month, and then look at the long-term plan in order to get those. These are the 3 that are easiest to get in as quickly as
Okay.
possible. The others will take longer-term work, and therefore will take longer-term in order to get approval and to get in place. So we started
they're
with the
still
ones
in
that we can-
process, right?
that we can
That's-
get
okay.
as quickly as possible.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Kristen Fasaro.
Hi, everybody. Oh, sorry. 2 quick agenda questions. One is on 4.2, the approval of the revised minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Can you let us know what was revised in those
Absolutely.
minutes?
I can take that if you'd like.
Sure.
We do all of our minutes online on Board Docs, so, I mean, there's public access to that. And in the past, what would happen would be, there's 3 items there. There's view the agenda from a previous meeting, there's print the agenda from a previous meeting, which have all the details in it, and then there's view the minutes. In transcribing the minutes, some data was left out on the minutes piece that was on the agenda piece. So the revision basically has to do with the names, for example, of the people that were appointed as district clerk, as legal counsel. The information was already on the agenda, which was publicly available, but not in the
Just not on the
formal
other
legal
side.
minutes. So we need a resolution to legally change that.
Got it.
So we're adding that information in.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Oh, you're welcome.
The other one was on agenda item 3.2, has actually sparked my curiosity, Dr. Olmeis's presentation. You mentioned that one of the initiatives to address learning gaps was things like the math club and the STEAM club, and I just wondered if there was any consideration by the district or the board to fund more supervisors so that more kids could be involved in that, because it's my understanding that right now those are all lottery-based, and so it's not necessarily meeting the needs of all the students. Kids are actually applying to be part of that and not getting in.
That's really,
Probably more for them than for you, right?
that's really a funding question, and I made as many clubs as I have, funding usually. With the STEAM clubs, we had an Orion club, so I took that funding, and instead of funding two teacher stipends for those clubs that ran the whole year, I took and made 6 individuals so I could create a STEAM club at each elementary school. Unfortunately, I know they're very popular clubs. The same thing, we have art clubs, and we just don't have, I guess, unlimited funds. I can certainly request additional funding, but, we are limited.
Right, of course, I understand in that regard your hands are tied. I guess I just wanted to ask for that clarification and maybe make the board aware that at the elementary level, there definitely is more interest, and if we're presenting it as a way to close the learning gap, I would love to see that given some consideration to meet the needs of those kids. Selfishly, mine being one of them, who happened to be in the math club last year, and I do really believe it helped close that gap for her, and we applied for her to be in it again this year, and she wasn't selected. So we're working with private tutoring right now, but I would love to see her be helped in-house.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
bringing that up. We can always look at how, we have a set limit, as Dr. Olmos mentioned, as to both financially and contractually as
course.
to the clubs, but we can always look at what that distribution is and take
Thank
that
you.
into- So thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
How many kids are in the club, Dr. Omis? How many kids are in these clubs?
Well, we try and max it out. We try and max out the clubs between 15 and 18 for a remedial type club like the math club. If you have, 30 kids in there, it's not really going to work well with providing appropriate remediation for the students. But what I've, see, the thing is with the clubs, it's 18 sessions. So, and I know that we've had a lot of students that have put in. So I've said to the teachers, what you can do is instead of doing one club for 18 weeks, you can take 9 weeks and break it up. So you can take 15 kids for 9 weeks. I said, and then you can do it, instead of waiting 9 weeks before you start the second club, you can go Monday and Wednesday, have Club A and Club B. So I try to be a little creative in being able to reach as many students as we could.
Still 15 kids out of 80 in a grade,
Right, but not all 80 kids apply. I know that the numbers are more than what we have capacity for currently. Certainly.
Well, I appreciate you bringing it up. We're aware of it now, and
And again, this
I
is in-
thank you for coming
This
up
is
with creative
above,
ideas.
Those kids that already receive math AIS services 3 times a week during the day, during the school day.
it's above that, but those kids who are receiving that service can still go to the club.
Yes.
Right, so it's not like you didn't qualify for the service even though you're struggling, here's a math club you could join.
It's an additional, it's open to anyone who applies, but again, we have capacity maximums, unfortunately.
Excellent, thank you. Ms. Martino, are you good? I'm good, thank you. Excellent. Okay.
Anyone else on your list?
No one else on the list for that? Okay. Can I get a mover for the consent agenda?
I'd like to move 8.1, the consent agenda.
Moved by Mrs. Cunningham, seconded by Mrs. Aniello. On the question? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0-0. Mr. Davidson, do we have any,
Yes. The board has voted on the appointment as someone very important to us. I'm going to ask her and her family, ask her to rise and please introduce her family. We have a new assistant superintendent for special education and pupil personnel services. Dr. Christy Kingston joins us from Manhasset. Congratulations.
Look at that little wave.
We're really grateful to have you here. We're excited for the future to come. Who's here with you today?
Is that all?
And just like many of you in this room, she graduated from Lindenhurst. So that's great. So
Excellent.
we're looking forward to working with you, and we don't want to pain your family. It's okay when we turn ahead if you all head out, because I know that you have children with you that need to get up for school, but thank you.
Well, congratulations and welcome to Lindenhurst. Thank you. Okay, at this point, without further ado, we'll go to the community forum. I have 5 people that signed up, and obviously we have our public participation policy. We're going to keep this to a max of a half an hour. Each speaker has up to 5 minutes, and we can, be reasonable with that as possible. So on the list, if you could just go up there and state your name and address. First is Melanie Garby.
Hi, everybody. My name is Melanie Garby. I'm going to read this just so that I don't forget what I was tweaking all day long. My address, as written on my license, which I have in case any of you need to see it, is 108 North Green Avenue. My questions actually surround board policy. Am I correct in noting that Lindenhurst Code of Conduct promotes a zero-tolerance policy on bullying? Just to be sure. Is it a zero-tolerance policy?
If that's what's written in the policy.
Okay, but you can't answer that.
Well, I don't have the policy right
Okay.
in front of me. so-
Okay. So who does the policy apply to? Does it apply to everyone? Is it just students? Is it board members? Is it administrators? Does it apply to everyone?
That's a good question. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay. Okay. And are they held then, would they be held to the same standards as students? If they are held accountable?
Again, your questions are being a little bit vague, so
They're pretty straightforward.
yeah,
They're pretty straightforward. Or is everybody held to the same standard?
yes.
Yes. And are they then held to the same standards? And, oops, sorry. All right. So if someone were to be in violation of board policy, let's say someone was engaged in stalking, would that be in violation of board policy?
If that's what it says in the policy, then yes.
Okay. Would it be in violation of board policy if someone within the district threatened violence on another party within the district?
Again, yes.
Okay. Would it be a violation of board policy to put political motives above the welfare of the district and its students?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Okay. Where, if at all, does open and blatant character assassination fit into board policy?
Again, could you repeat the question? She didn't hear
Sure,
it.
of course. Where, if at all, does open and blatant character assassination fit into board policy?
Would have to look at that.
Okay, thank you. And then can you explain what issues in particular are reserved for executive session versus issues that should be discussed in public according to the open meetings law?
I'm going to defer to our counsel to what is legit for executive session. Mr.
Okay,
Dillon?
great.
The open meetings law delineates various topics, consulting with counsel, matters that affect personnel, collective bargaining, real estate, school safety, the list goes on and on. There's several of them. I believe it's section 108 of the open meetings law. I don't have the ball memorized right now. I apologize.
No, you don't have to. Okay. So based on this very brief, quick discussion, I'd like to bring to light a couple of issues which I believe may be in direct violation of this board policy. It has come to my attention that a sitting trustee was threatened at their home by a member of this district or a family member of this district. My children and I were stalked and followed this past year by members of this district and community members who were put up to following us and taking pictures of us. Members of this district have put politics and power above the best interests of the students and staff. These are just a few examples, and since I know we can't discuss names out in public, I and other victims would be happy to sit down with the attorneys and go on record with the information that we have at any time. I have a lot of time on my hands now. To help bring one example to light, which is specific to me, I've prepared the following statement. If any of you have your friends that have followed me on speed dial, I'm going to finish this out because I know that my 85-pound, 5-foot-nothing person is someone that should be followed around in the hopes of intimidating. Please let them know that when I leave here tonight, I will, as I usually do, go to the cemetery to say goodnight to my daughter. My 16-year-old daughter, who is a student of yours, whose death some of you used as a way to further send a sick political agenda. So I would appreciate if you have those people just hold off until I pull away from the fence, for that's common decency. I cannot be intimidated by anonymous tough guy tactics. That would be impossible. I've seen the bottom. I'm not afraid of anybody. I know that people like to try to cause me to be. So in closing, while I might not have the blessing of having my own children still being in this district, the 5,000 others that are here deserve to be represented by people that care, that are honest, that have empathy, that think the children matter. Accountability is a necessity of those who hold positions of power. I look forward to this Board of Education making a swift and decisive change in the way it operates and what it prioritizes. If that cannot be done, I would urge you to step aside and make room for those who can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Garvey.
Yep, thank you.
Jeannie Saylor.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. My name is Jeannie Saylor. Clearly, I am a parent of a child in the schools, and I do not want to give my address. First, I'd like to thank you again for bringing the LICAB program into our schools. I've heard from faculty, staff, and students that it was very informative, and everyone enjoyed Joe Solomone's assembly. I stand here and speak tonight not only as a parent, but as an advocate for parents and children who are targets of the bullying behaviors going on within our school walls. The safety of our children has become more and more of a concern within our schools. The number of parents who have reached out to me with their concerns and seeking advice has grown significantly since the business meeting. Not only have the number of parents reaching out grown, the behaviors have grown significantly as well. A child received a 3-day suspension for a terrible decision he made a year ago. The information shared was not shared by the child throughout the district, but the other students who had the information shared it. The student who had shared the information are the same students who did something similar to my child a few months ago. They received a 1-day suspension. The same week, their video was reported. A year later, this child gets 3 days, but not the kids who were sharing it. A parent filed several complaints to the school regarding her son being bullied. After her son was assaulted physically, the parent was promised that the student would be removed from a class and lunch period. A week later, her son, still sitting at the same lunch table, gets assaulted by the aggressor again. When the parent asked why they were still at the same table at lunch, she received an apology with something along the lines of, "It slipped our minds." Student lunches are being taken away. Students are being threatened. Their possessions are being thrown around, and when they ask for their things back, they are surrounded by the aggressors and their friends. This altercation escalates and is physical, and they both get the same consequence. While another parent whose child has never had issues within our school is asking for help because a student who the school is familiar with keeps harassing her for money. Parents are filing DASA reports and receiving their resolution reports. That's great. The resolution clearly states that no party should retaliate, but there is retaliation. Kids are being called snitches. They are being made fun of in the hallway, pushed and isolated. Parents and students are afraid. Their kids don't want parents reporting anything. The number of students developing mental and emotional illness is growing. Some of these students require passes to leave classes early in order to avoid some of the behaviors and taunting that they experience in school. Why aren't these behaviors being managed? Apparently, Recent shared that her child's bullying is so bad, she admitted to cutting herself because it's the only way to make the hurt go away. I've also had parents mention videos of students on social media stating that their bestie gives them passes and boy advice. Well, that's not a big deal. It is when the bestie they are referring to is a teacher. As a parent, I wonder, what were to happen if the student who receives this pass from their bestie is one who harasses the child who needs the pass to leave early? This is what our middle school parents and children are experiencing. While bullies have been around for ages, for some of us parents who currently have children in your schools, this is an everyday occurrence. This summer, I met with some board members to discuss changes to our policies. What were the changes? Why is it still going on? What tools are you giving our administrators within our schools to help them fix these behaviors? What are you doing to make these changes? And what's being made? I know I heard some things tonight, but what since we spoke in the summer has been changing? When are examples going to be made? Now, yes, consequences, you want to be careful with it, but you know what? Some consequences need to be made. And by examples, I don't mean penalizing the targets, because what sense does it make when you have the harasser and the target getting the same consequence? That makes no sense. Where is the alternative learning center for these students? They need to be removed from our schools. And what other programs have you tried to incorporate? Challenge Day, ABCs of bullying? We do have a bullying epidemic that cannot be swept under the rug. And I'm sorry that you have to hear me say this again, but if you don't want to hear me bring this up again, please change it.
Thank you, Mrs. Saylor. Could I just ask a quick question for you? Would you be willing to stay afterwards and speak with Mr. Davidson and myself?
I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll be here for that. Did you have a comment, Ms. Cunningham? Mike? Oh, okay, thank you. Mrs. Herrig, you're up next. Oh, good, I asked if you had a question, yeah.
Jackie Herrig, you know who I am.
May I have a moment, please?
Yeah.
There was one thing in there about a teacher texting a student, so that's the only thing I would want to get more information on.
Well, Mrs. Saylor made some
So we'd really like to.
pretty serious comments there.
Point of order?
And
Okay.
Mr. Gillen?
Yeah, to the extent that we're going to start to discuss personnel matters, these are confidential, and I do not think appropriate for public discussion. If there are issues with regard to personnel,
My concern is, and I'm sorry that I'm not speaking on the mic, my concern is that some of these kids are getting away with these behaviors because they're being encouraged by these teachers, or some teachers, or this particular teacher, and I know you can't discuss them, and I get it, but this information is coming to me from another parent who accidentally found it and said that they have sent it to the district, and yet this is still going on. The recent video was a week ago. So, like, what's going on? And my concern is, and I will admit that my daughter has had a fabulous year so far, and things have been handled. But my concern now is for these other parents who have these same things happening to them. And like I said, when I tried to speak at the business meeting, it was only a couple. It grew more, and it's physical now, and it's threatening. I had this one parent say that her child was threatened to be thrown down the stairs and make it look like an accident. That's not okay.
Mrs. Saylor, what I can tell you is this: we can handle what is presented before us. The things you're reporting have never reached our desk. And honestly, and I can say, in fairness, people can say what they wish to say, they can embellish, they can make up things. We can, right, but in the same respect, you talk about advocacy, speaking at a board meeting isn't a way for us to be able to address that. And you're certainly welcome to do that, but we need concrete information in order for us to intervene, you know? And in the same respect, what you're reporting is not acceptable, but I have to know that it's happening, we have to know where it's happening, and we have to be able to address it. So I think one of the most important things is we do have a chain of communication. And if they are bringing it to administration, which I don't know that they are, and that's not being addressed, then it goes and moves up. Eventually, it reaches me. And we've talked, and I've shown a commitment here. I won't turn a blind eye to things, but I want to deal with what's in front of us. And that's why I think Mr. Langone asked.
And that's what I was
Right,
wanting to
for us
ask you,
get the information,
not in a public
not in a
session,
public
was
session.
what's actually happening? Because Mr. Davidson said, if we're not seeing the reports, and that's why, if you recall, I asked the question of Dr. Giudicibus, is the level of bullying going up, down? What's happening with that? Because if there is a rash of unreported bullying, we want to know that. We want to know why that's happening. I'm not looking for a political solution to this. I want to solve the problem. So if there's really people out there that's happening, we need to figure out why and how to fix that. Because that's what we do. And that's what I wanted to ask you. Oh, and like I said, that was the sum and substance of what I wanted to ask you about. Thank you. Mrs. Barrett?
Or did you mention that some parents are being encouraged not to file a DASA?
Let me know about that. Mrs.
That
Herrick?
could be why your DASA reports
Okay.
are down. Anyway, I'm Mrs. Herrick. You all know who I am. You don't need my address. You can Google it like a regular stalker. I have a question. Mr. Caravana, when we had met in June to discuss the Regents exams, we had also discussed possibly creating multiple pathways to graduation. I had spoke with Mr. Giordano following that meeting, and he told me that they were writing something up for the board to sign so we could send off supporting reinstating multiple pathways to graduation. That letter never came to fruition. Is that something that we can look at doing?
Jackie, you were a board member, so you know you asked the board president. I'll ask Mr. Davidson if we could expand on that a little bit, or if we need more information about
I'm
it.
not certain what that letter would be, so I'd have to find out more information. What I can tell you, I'm sorry, I'm using my principal voice. I'm not familiar with that letter or what that would be. I know that we do have multiple pathways to graduation already. I know that the state is also putting together plans in order to create multiple pathways and is announcing in 2024, in the spring of 2024, different pathways towards a diploma. So I'm not sure what that letter
Okay,
is.
well,
but
there-
I would have to, we'll definitely meet and we'll talk and see if I can pick up.
Years ago, it used to be generals, regents, honors, giving children a little bit more leeway. Now, the special ed kids have to take the same exit exams that every other child has to take. So,
I understand the difficulties with that. I can tell you that one of the things which is exciting, and you can look into it, it's called the PLAN, P-L-A-N pilot, and the state is looking to move in a direction where where the pathway to graduation is more individual.
okay, so then my recommendation would be to write a letter and support and push to get those pathways in place, and other districts will follow. You have a chance to be a leader on that. My question is, from the last meeting, the HR position that you put in place, was that job posted?
Yes.
And how many applicants did you get?
Offhand, I'm not sure. I think.
Ballpark.
I think ballpark. I'm really not sure. I don't want to be inaccurate with that. I'm not sure. Maybe 70. I'm not sure.
You interviewed 70
We
applicants?
didn't interview 70 because honestly, when you get an application, it's posted publicly and internally.
Okay.
Not everyone who even applies is qualified, has certification.
So
in order
when
to
you
do
narrowed
that.
it down, how many did you interview for the position?
We screened 22 people.
22. And was there a salary posted with that?
No,
Why not?
we had a salary range. We weren't going to commit to a salary. It gave us the flexibility.
Flexibility. Interesting. Okay, that's what I wanted to
But what I
ask.
can add is that there was an analysis done, and what we did do was take a look at the current rate of all Western Suffolk BOCES HR officials and delegates. We looked at the Suffolk County rates. We came in with a range of salary that was in the average range. So it wasn't done, it wasn't pulled out of thin air.
Okay. I did my own homework too, and I looked. But I'm asking because I know why the position was recommended in the first place. And you all know, I know you all know, why that position was recommended in the first place. And I was just curious as to how you got where you ended up.
Thank you, Mrs. Herrig. Kristen Fasaro?
Hi again, everybody. Kristen Fusaro, 199 32nd Street. I'm the PTA president at Albany Avenue Elementary School, and although I don't currently have a high schooler, I want to discuss with you tonight a topic that has come up at our unit PTA meetings quite frequently in the last couple of months, and it seems that it's related mostly to the high school, but really, as I'll mention, it trickles down to us at Albany Avenue as well, and that is the busing situation that has frequently been brought to your attention. And for anybody who maybe is unaware or is here at a community forum for the first time, what we mean by that is that anyone that's under the 1.5-mile radius and does not qualify for a bus from the Albany Avenue area in particular has to cross Wellwood Avenue. And the recommended routes to cross Wellwood Avenue are not safe. We've, I think, discussed that at length. I don't want to rehash that too often, but we know it means no stoplights, no stop signs, excuse me, no crossing guards, no crosswalks. And I have heard everything that the board and the district has said about your hands being tied legislatively. And to your credit, you have changed board policy to the extent that you could, and that certainly gave, would you say, maybe in the neighborhood of 100 additional families the opportunity to get the bus to the high school now. I think that's what was mentioned at the last meeting. But unfortunately, there's still a great number of families that are affected by not being able to get the bus. And at the last community forum, it was recommended by some board members that we begin to lobby our local legislators, that we sort of actively take a role in helping you to change this. So, you know, when you think of PTA, I think especially at the elementary level, you probably think book fairs and class parties, and that's definitely true. And we enjoy that part of our job, for sure. But I want to add to that it is also advocacy, that our job as volunteers with the PTA is to advocate for children, and that is the mission of the New York State PTA, is to advocate for the well-being and the welfare of children. And so we heard what you said, and we took that to heart, especially because it impacts the bubble around Albany Avenue quite significantly. And I don't yet have a high schooler, but I will. And so I've taken a liking to this issue. I guess that's probably not the best way to phrase it. I don't really like the issue at all, but it has become an issue that I want to see rectified. And so I contacted the Suffolk Region Director. I've spoken with the Advocacy Chair of Suffolk Region, and I've spoken with leadership from New York State PTA. And they are now planning to very actively work with us to investigate the safety concerns that we're sharing here in Lindenhurst, including the student safety, the child safety zone problem, where the various points are assigned, and they are very actively going to work with us to investigate that, which could result in a very extensive fact-finding mission that will potentially help us write a resolution. That resolution can be taken to New York State PTA and can be voted on by all of the active voting units across New York State. That, we believe, will help open some doors when it comes to the elected officials that you are asking us to reach out to. But to begin that process, I have a couple of questions that I hope you can answer for us tonight. And the first one is, if you can tell us if the district uses a specific program when calculating the routes.
Yeah, we actually use two software programs in order to establish the audit. One was EduLog, and the other is TransFinder.
TransFinder?
TransFinder.
Thank you, I'm just writing that down, thank you. Is it required to use those particular programs?
I think that they're industry standard, those two programs. I can't speak offhand if there are other programs. They're definitely the most commonly used ones that I'm aware of.
Okay, and so my follow-up question to that would have been, and maybe this is something we can talk about at another time because it's part of this fact-finding mission, is if they are required, who is that requiring body? Who's telling the district you need to use those? And if they're not required, are there other options? And if so, why are we using these? Because the problem seems to begin with the routes that are calculated with this software.
Mm-hmm. Well, the software, again, both software programs matched. So there was two independent studies done relative to that. So again, why are they used? They're the industry standard. So they're very commonly used. They're software programs that are readily applied into buses and accepted as being accurate. So those are the two that we use. In terms of other methods, I'd be, I'm not certain off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the answer. My last question is, again, in an effort to advocate for children and work with New York State PTA to perhaps pursue some sort of resolution to rectify this issue, we need maybe some clarification or some direction. Who exactly you think we need to lobby? Are we talking village officials, county officials, state officials? I would need some insight from the board or the district regarding where the red tape lies, where the policies are that we need to target our investigation towards.
So first of all, thank you for doing that. I actually brought that up. I was the trustee that brought it up at the community forum, and I also brought it up at the PTA council when you guys gave out all the candy. So I appreciate the fact that you guys are doing that, because your voices are a lot louder than ours, in a good way. In addition to the answers that Mr. Davidson gave you already, I think you're going to find more traction in lobbying to change the way that the child safety zone points are scored, because regardless of whether you use TransFinder or EduLog or whatever, that's only going to sort of solve for that corner case of a student that's 1.49 to 1.51 miles. In the area where, at Albany Avenue, for example, you may have an entire region of students that, right now, we would try to apply a child safety zone, and because the point system is so outdated, it doesn't rise to the level of authorizing a bus, against what that 1.5 mile limit is.
Right.
So that would most likely be the area that you'd want to go and lobby, and as far as the people you'd want to lobby, it's really the state. So it's the state legislature, Senate, Assembly, State Education Department. The county and village officials, I'm sure they could help, but they don't write that law.
Right.
So it's the state assembly, state legislature that actually.
And just as a point of reference on this topic, in talking with the New York State PTA leadership that we're working with, we found that there is already a resolution that has been adopted by New York State from Massapequa about the child safety zone point system. And so that may give us a bit of an advantage in amending that resolution and making some headway in lobbying for that. It's not going to change the child safety zone points directly to bring a resolution to New York State, but it gives us a little bargaining power when it comes to having those conversations with the people who have the ability to change that. And while it's Nassau County, it is 10 minutes down the road from us, where the traffic patterns and the population are very similar to what we're dealing with here. And so we hope that will be useful, and we hope that we can count on you to collaborate with us in making this possible.
Absolutely. Mrs. Cunningham had a comment also.
I'm sorry.
Just so that you know, Mrs. Martino and I went to the NYSBA convention in Syracuse and met with New York State School Boards Association and sat through one of their conferences, and then I went right up to them and said, listen, you're going to hear from us because we need to have a discussion on the child safety zones. And they said, okay, and they gave me the 2 people that I could reach out to, so that's the other part of support. So if you and I can connect, I would be thrilled, because I told them this has to change.
Absolutely.
I walked some of those routes and was mortified. And what I said to NYSBA was, this is antiquated. We're crossing roads that you're saying that the child safety zones are saying we can cross.
Right.
Maybe 20 years ago, but not now.
Well, and as Mr. Davidson mentioned in your report earlier about the middle schools, we know the prefrontal cortexes of the kids this age are not fully developed, and we're now asking them to make judgment calls about safely getting themselves across traffic like a game of Frogger.
So
and I began by saying I think everybody in this room has had this conversation enough that we all know we're in agreement about it, but a lot of hands are tied with red tape, and we wanted to publicly tell you that as a PTA unit and working with other units in council, we are now actively pursuing involving New York State PTA to help do that.
I'm more than happy to give you my number after the meeting. Let me know when you're having a meeting, and let's work this out, because this is another level.
I'm going to shut up so that you have enough time to take your last speaker, because Katie wants to talk about the same issue. So thank you.
Great, phenomenal.
Katie Belpano?
Hi, Katie Belpano, 209 33rd Street. I first wanted to thank the Board of Ed again for the work that you've done to help address the busing situation for some of the students in our community. And although that work did help some students, there are still many, my children in particular, but that are still left to walk long distances to school on dangerous routes. I recently learned that the route that's used to calculate the mileage eligibility from my area does not have students crossing even at a crosswalk, Wellwood Avenue. So I initially thought that we were crossing at Harrington and going up to Fremont Street where there's a crosswalk, something to regulate the traffic, whether people listened or not. Instead, students are asked to go down, head north on Wellwood once they hit it, and cross at Gary Street, a three-way intersection that doesn't even go across the street. I was floored. I couldn't believe that that's how we expect our children to cross the street. What was that? So Gary is only on what I'm going to call the Daniel Street side of Wellwood Avenue. It doesn't even cross over. It meets Johnson's Funeral Home. So it's not a dead end. It goes from the park across. So students would be expected to walk to Harrington, walk north along Wellwood Avenue for approximately 1 block, and cross Wellwood Avenue in the middle of the street. One of the first things we teach our children when we allow them to go out on their own is to only cross busy roads at safe intersections, those with a crosswalk or a traffic light. Yet here we are, as a school district, telling families and students that the route that is used to calculate mileage to the school requires crossing at an unsafe intersection. I think it's pretty safe to say that none of us here feel this is a safe way for our children to cross Wellwood Avenue. I've heard what you said, and I know that although this is the route used to calculate and the route that would be used to determine if a child's safety zone exists, it is only used as the shortest available route and does not need to be the route the child uses to walk to or from school. In many cases, if the child were to walk a different, safer route, even just the small distance to the crosswalk, they would then walk the distance that is required to qualify for a bus. As a working parent, I'm unable to pick my child up from school at the end of the school day. Prior to the change in our district policy, my child was getting a ride home from school from a neighbor. Our neighbors now qualify for a bus, however, we do not. I looked into the child care provision since my neighbors were essentially providing child care, getting my child safely home from school. Are you aware that the child care provision for transportation is only for students in grades K to 8? So my child care, I know my child is in 9th grade, but she can't safely get home from school. She now has no way. Do you have any flexibility in extending that child care provision?
I don't know. Is that board policy? Guys, we don't know. We're going to find that out.
Okay. As you heard from Kristen, we've taken your advice. I worked with Kristen to contact the New York State, to deal with that. We're working to advocate to make changes in regulations that you're bound by. My question to you tonight is, how are you continuing to address this situation in order to help the students who are still left to walk to and from school on dangerous routes?
As you heard, we are advocating as well. We'll be happy to help with PTA. Actually, Kristen, I was going to tell you that Melody Butner is also
Melody Butler?
Butler, yeah, is already involved in that as well. And yeah, we will continue to do that.
Okay.
We're also, I can tell you, Mr. Van Wart, who's not here tonight because of the birth of his baby daughter.
Oh,
here,
congratulations.
Van Wart, is well steeped in regulation, and we certainly would meet with you and provide whatever information and resources we can to make it easier.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We just have a correction to an agenda item that I am going to read to my colleagues. We're going to have to make a quick change here. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby rescinds item number 9.2, 3020A. Be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby adopts the following resolution. Whereas the superintendent of schools has preferred charges against the employee named in confidential Schedule A pursuant to Section 3020A of the New York State Education Law, and whereas the Board of Education has determined, by a vote of a majority of all the members of the board, that probable cause exists for the charges preferred against said employee by the superintendent of schools, be it further resolved that should the employee named in executive session either waive his or her right to a hearing or be found guilty of the charges after a hearing, the Board of Education shall seek his or her termination from service in the Lindenhurst Union Free School District. The change is basically removing one line from the original resolution.
How do we vote on that?
Can I get a second?
Second, do you have to do, since it's
I think we'll, do we need to
22,
poll, or,
24-hour notice or anything on it?
well, we're just modifying it, so no.
Oh, it's just a modification?
So a poll, or?
amended?
Okay, so motion to waive 24 hours on this?
Do you have to do a call on that?
Yes. Who's at the end?
Michael.
Yes.
Mr. Giuseppe?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Ms. Martino?
Yes.
Ms. Aniello?
Yes.
Cunningham, chair votes yes. So having moved 24-hour notice, I've moved the amended resolution. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Renner. On the question? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 6-0-0. Thank you, Mr. Gillen. Okay. Do we have any unfinished business? Do we have any new business? Superintendent's reports.
I think you've all heard enough from me tonight. Happy Thanksgiving.
So we have a bunch of treasurer's reports, so acknowledged. Okay. Dates to remember are listed. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, on the question. So you know. Thank you, and have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone.